So Donald Trump was reacting to Hamas suspending the planned hostage releases, and he said that all hostages should be released by noon on Saturday, no longer expecting the parties to comply with the schedule of releases, which is agreed under the ceasefire, and the phases of the ceasefire, which the US, a deal that the US helped to broker. Instead, Donald Trump said all the hostages should be released at once, and then all hell would break out if that didn't occur. And he said ultimately it's Israel's decision, but that's what he would expect to happen. So Hamas has said that it doesn't accept it doesn't value the language of threats. It says that kind of talk is meaningless. It says, in fact, that it's still committed to the ceasefire deal, but it's taken this step because it's been monitoring and noting consistent breaches of the ceasefire by Israel. It accuses the Israelis of breaching the ceasefire in three ways: by impeding the return of Palestinians from the south of Gaza to the north. That did occur. There was a delay in Israel opening up those crossings, and Israel said that was because Hamas didn't release a particular hostage as agreed and provide lists of the hostages it was going to release. The second way Hamas alleges is that Israel has shot Palestinians and bombed parts of Gaza. That also did occur. Israel said that those instances it was protecting its troops or enforcing security conditions, for example, when a car didn't comply, didn't approach the correct checkpoint. And in the third way, and this is contested between Israel and Hamas, Hamas alleges that Israel's been delaying the entry of aid, particularly shelter such as tents and caravans and heavy equipment that's needed to clear the rubble in Gaza. And Israel says it hasn't been delaying aid, but there are some quibbles about the inspection process and the entry of some of those items, because Israel says heavy equipment such as bulldozers are potentially dual-use items that could be used by Hamas to fight. So that's one of the biggest areas that's still being contested. But in Israel, the big question is, how will it respond to Hamas suspending the schedule of hostage releases?
Can you tell us a bit more about what reaction there has been in Israel to these latest developments?
Absolute alarm, fear and outrage from the hostage families. They've been blocking roads in Tel Aviv. They're planned to protest outside the cabinet meeting of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament today, saying that Israel must return to ceasefire talks. So the Israelis sent a delegation to Qatar, one of the key mediators, late. Which it was itself potentially a breach of the ceasefire agreement. Ceasefire talks about the second phase of the ceasefire was supposed to begin last Monday, but Israel delayed sending its delegation while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met President Donald Trump in Washington. They sent the delegation late, and then they recalled them after just 2 days without any progress. So the hostage families are demanding that the negotiators be returned to Qatar with a real mandate to proceed with the ceasefire deal. There are still 17 hostages on the list in Gaza who are due to come out in this first phase of the ceasefire. 8 of them are thought to be dead, but that's 9 living hostages who need to come out in phase 1. The remainder of all hostages were due to come out in phase 2, but the talks about how that phase would be implemented did not progress, and now we've seen Hamas suspending the releases for the remainder of phase 1. So it looks like the ceasefire, Yvonne, is on incredibly shaky ground.
Well, Eric, what are the chances of the ceasefire continuing and progressing to a second phase?
It doesn't look good. It looks like there's an enormous mistrust between the parties. We can see how they're disputing whether or not the ceasefire has been complied with. Israel is angry about the condition of the latest hostages who were released on Saturday. They looked gaunt, like they'd been really denied food, or they hadn't seen much light or medical care during their captivity. And it also doesn't like the way that Hamas is turning the hostage releases into a production, trying to assert its control of Gaza again and trying to turn this ceasefire into something of a victory. Those scenes are disturbing a lot of people, particularly on the Israeli right. But there are many people in the Israeli government, including 2 ministers, have come out saying that they support President Trump. There should be a total release of hostages and a return to fighting in Gaza. Now, this will have enormous, this will spark enormous alarm amidst the many Israelis who want to see the deal proceed, who want to see all the living hostages released and the bodies returned. And that is, according to the polling, a majority of Israelis Israelis. So the big question is, now that Israel has, in response to Hamas's announcement, put its forces on high alert, preparing for a potential resumption of fighting, is this deal salvageable?
Eric, thank you for that update.